feel like I deserve a blackjack. Let's see it.
You do too.
My goodness! Let's go!
Hello, my name is Matt Brose with Lockton. In my role, I consult with employers all around the country related to their employee benefits strategy. We're in conversations all the time about how to attract the best talent and get the best out of their people. Work ethic, integrity, those are all traits of people that pursue excellence, and it doesn't even stop there. From the boardroom to the storeroom, we're going to find out what drives those people. Welcome to the excellence culture. This is going to be an excellent adventure.
Welcome to the excellence culture. I'm Matt Brose, and I am so excited for two things happening today. First of all, the guest that I have today, Johnnie Yellock. Thank you so much for so many things, for who you are, first of all, and what you've done for our country. Johnnie is an American hero, when it comes down to it. And so, Johnnie, first, I think there's probably an elephant in the room of what's all this on the table, but I would like first for you to just kind of do more of a formal introduction to yourself, and maybe your experience in the military especially.
Staff Sergeant Johnnie Yellock. I come from a dual veteran family. Both my parents served in the military, and then I went off to do the same. I was in the Air Force. I was a combat controller, which is a special operator in the military, and served 2 deployments in Afghanistan. My first one was pretty tame. My second one was more adventurous, you might say.
Yeah.
Dedicated my life to honoring all the people that got me to that point.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're going to get into your amazing story, and it's a very humbling story, especially humbling for me. And but just everybody get very excited about hearing your story. He's made one of the biggest sacrifices we could ever make, and so we're going to get into that. But I certainly want to do the second announcement. This is why we've got poker chips here. This is why we've got a card shoe here, is that Johnnie is raising money for a charity that he is very involved with. Do you run this charity?
Yes, I'm the executive director of Boots for Warriors.
Okay.
Station
Cool.
right here in Dallas.
Cool. And so I am, from now on the excellence culture, when I'm interviewing somebody that's associated with the charity, we're going to play blackjack. And I'm starting Johnnie off with $100. Whatever we end up with at the end of our conversation, I'm going to donate to the charity. Okay? So it's kind of like the Hot Ones thing that we're seeing on YouTube, right? We're going to do something while we're talking, and I'm going to try to be a dealer. I was recently in Lake Tahoe, and I watched these dealers, and I don't know if I know what I'm doing at all. So
we'll find out.
Remember, I'm just an insurance guy. So
It's just counting.
Yeah, and I don't know if I count that good. So we will see. But I'm going to start dealing. And while we're dealing, the first thing I want to do is just kind of get into your story, kind of your upbringing. So let's go ahead and just kind of get started.
$2. Oh, that's a good start.
Yeah, we're going to $2 minimum. Everybody knows that we're winging this right now. This is the first time. That is
not a loaded deck.
That is a really good start, by the way. So we've got an 8 and a 6 showing.
So soft 17.
Yes, and so I've got a 4 showing. What would you like to do there? Would you like to...
Well, some people would say that on a soft 17 against a 14, you would stay, but my uncle would say that you always hit a soft, so I'll take it. I'll take a card.
Okay. All right, so we've got 16 there.
Now I've got a 16, so now I've got to stay against your 14.
Yeah, for sure. All right,
Bam.
so I've got 14. Let's
Big
see.
card.
19.
19.
Oh,
All right.
man. All right. So tell me a little bit
Take
about
the money out of the nonprofit. Does that feel good?
Well, we'll see. There's going to be a lot of hands. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. I would love to kind of hear where little Johnnie.
Yes. It all started, with both my parents, like I imagine you did as well. But my dad did 27 years in the Air Force. My mom did 20 years in the Air Force. My mom was a radio and television broadcaster, so I'd wake up in places like Iceland, where we lived for a couple of years, and see my mom on TV or hear her on the radio. And so she was quite the stickler for my English papers whenever I bring them home. She would edit them much worse than my teachers would. But my dad was a crew chief, worked on F-4s during Vietnam, F-15s.
My dad flew F-4s in Vietnam.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in the Air Force for 21 years.
We'll have to connect those dots
Yeah.
and see if they were ever on the same island.
Yeah.
And then my dad and mom both retired out of San Antonio. So that's where I spent most of my life was in San Antonio. High school, in the middle of my freshman year, we moved up here to Keller, Texas, and graduated from Keller. Growing up, all I wanted to do was be in the Winston Churchill ROTC program.
Okay.
In San Antonio, that is the best that you can do,
Yeah.
and win national championships every single year. So middle school, and then going into my high school year, I joined the ROTC program there. My plan was to go to A&M, be in the Corps, and then my parents got out of the military and moved up to Keller, Texas. Well, in San Antonio, that's military capital of the world, right? In DFW in 1998, it wasn't the most affluent schools that had ROTC programs.
Mm-hmm.
Up here, ROTC seemed more like a correctional, institution on campuses. Unfortunately,
yeah.
right? The mindset was different. As a way to fix kids, that may be struggling. So ROTC give them some structure and some motivation toward doing good things. Well, Keller High School didn't have an ROTC program, so I got back into band. So unfortunately, I went away from spinning rifles and getting my chest pumped up, doing all the push-ups, and went back to playing the tuba, which I did for 3 years in middle school and then did for 4 years in high school. So played
I would love
the
to see
tuba
a picture of you with the tuba.
for 7 years. Even did such cool things as the Tuba Meister's Christmas, where I was on the Riverwalk with all these other tuba players just playing Christmas songs to nothing but melodious tunes from tubas. You can imagine, one, the audience, and two, all the musicians. I mean, I was the youngest probably by 40 years. So not the best rap tuba players, but I like to think I rocked it.
Yeah.
Graduated from Keller High School and went to Tarleton State University and got an engineering degree there. And when I graduated, first I graduated in 2002, which means my senior year I watched the Twin Towers fall. I remember the first one hitting and hearing the commotion in the hallway, and then getting to my next class and Channel 1 News being on and watching the second tower get hit by the second aircraft, and then watching that day transpire.
Mm-hmm.
For the next 2 weeks I spent...
So did you graduate in 98?
I graduated in 2002.
No, but high school? Oh,
yeah.
High school 2002.
High school 2002.
Okay.
So spent the next 2 weeks glued to the TV.
Yeah.
Wanted nothing more than to join the military as soon as I got out of high school. But in my family, both my parents went to the military right after high school. It was always incumbent upon us that you go to high school, you graduate, you go straight to college, you get your degree, and then if you want to join the military, you could be an officer then. So that's what I did. I graduated and went to Tarleton.
Did you have desire to pursue that engineering degree at all? Or?
The engineering degree was, the goal was to be a pilot.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a pilot. Let me pay up. Oh boy, good start. So I wanted a technical degree, and that's an easy one. So I'll take a card there.
Okay.
Give me a 10. That's awful. Yeah, card.
Cool.
That's 12. Great. This is
15.
15 against a 9. Got to take a card. 6 me. So I wanted to be a pilot.
This is what I feel like when I'm in casino.
Well, here's the problem. I just got to up the ante.
Yeah. Okay.
Wanted to be a pilot, and like a lot of young guys, I wanted to do a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoying getting my engineering degree. I had an internship for the last year of my time at Tarleton, and I loved the work that I did, but it also was 2006. I was watching what was happening in the fall of Iraq. The war is heating up, and I could see that it was impacting me a lot more internally than it was anyone that I was surrounding myself with. And I was just overwhelmed with the sense of, I gotta go do something that I can be proud of myself for. So
Yeah.
I got that degree, gave it to my parents. That wasn't the thing that filled me with a sense of accomplishment or pride, and I knew that I needed to do something bigger than myself. So I chose to follow my parents' footsteps and join the military.
Okay, so Air Force. Obviously, it seemed like a given that you were going to, join the Air Force. But did you consider any other branches?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Yeah.
No. That's 47 years of
Right there.
watching what the Air Force did for my family, right? I mean, my parents, pretty much on their own, raised 2 kids all over the world by themselves, supported by this military, which they poured everything they had into that, and it provided the means for an incredible result. So
Yeah.
I saw what the military did for our family, and I wanted to do the same.
Okay.
So it was the Air Force all the way, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so when you started, what was the process for those who have never pursued military? What's the process of finding out what your role is going to be within the military?
Well, as a matter of fact, as I drive to this office today,
What do we
I'm
got there?
driving past.
22.
Yeah, this is fun. I'm driving past the office for MEPS, Military Entrance Processing. So if somebody wants to join the military, they take either the ASVAB, which is the aptitude test to be enlisted, or the I think it's called the OFQT, which is for officers.
Okay.
They figure out your aptitude. Based on your aptitude, you have a list of jobs that you can choose from.
Okay.
In my instance, I take those same tests, but because I wanted to do a volunteer career field, I wanted to be a combat controller, a special operations billet, you can choose, as long as you have that minimum score, you can choose what you want to do. It's also based on the needs of the military, needs of the Air Force at the time. So if you're in time of war, the Army was filling spots left and right for engineers, combat engineers, guys to drive trucks, guys to get boots on the ground. They didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
But in my instance, I volunteered to be a combat controller. Actually, not true. I volunteered to be EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal, which is bomb squad.
Okay.
My recruiter convinced me that would be a better fit for a career that I could do something on the outside with. I'll finally stay and hope you bust. I mean, this deck.
You have not won a hand yet.
That's all right. It's probably gonna turn.
I think you should put a bunch out right now. I've got a good feeling. That's what you should do in gambling. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm watching it dwindle here.
Okay.
So, volunteered EOD. Now, if you give me a blackjack and you're right, okay, good. Like, you can't just call all the shots and be right all the time.
Yeah. So volunteered EOD.
Volunteered EOD, and that's also a volunteer career field. So, but if you fail, you can try to be another volunteer career field, and if you fail at that, you're out of the military. So there's a lot of risk there.
Yeah.
Explosive Ordnance Disposal, the first 7 days, a lot of curriculum, and I failed, right?
Okay.
So they bring me in the office and ask me what I want to do, and I say I want to be a combat controller, and they laughed at me because you don't fail Explosive Ordnance Disposal and then become a combat controller. Combat controller is you're on the battlefield, you're also dealing with explosives, you're setting up C4 charges, you're dropping bombs from aircraft, there's a lot more that goes on with combat control than Explosive Ordnance Disposal. But I went down to the office, I tried out, and that would start a 2-year-long attrition process of becoming a combat controller in the Air Force. So it was the greatest thing to have failed in that instant, to pick up the phone and call my dad and tell him the news that I had failed, and he said, well, what do you do? What's next? What are you going to do now? And it's like, I want to go be a combat controller. And you're like, well, that's what you want to do in the first place. So it's kind of God steering me in the right direction all along.
No doubt. Love that.
Yeah, I got to take a card.
I think you're probably going to hit.
I have to.
So I want to talk a little bit. What are you doing here?
I have to hit.
You don't have to.
I mean, a 15 against a 15?
Yeah.
I got to beat you.
You can.
See?
16.
Now I'm one up on you.
Yeah, okay.
I'll stay.
Okay, so 8.
11. This is going so well. It's all right. You know, it's not all about winning. You can take these.
So I want to hear, and there is, so I don't think we've said yet, but these are $1 chips, these are $5 chips, and then those are $10 chips. Now, if he runs out of money, we're gonna figure it out. It's gonna be okay. I'll get you some more money, okay? But so let's talk a little bit about like you coming up in the military, and then just from what I see, because I've never been in the military, but from an outsider's standpoint, is that the military is all about excellence, right? And the training in the military is better than any training in any business, right? And so I'd love for you to just kind of talk a little bit about just that idea of excellence within the military and just how detailed they are, you know?
Well, it's a common misconception. Oh, I got a handy.
Okay. I still have a really good feeling.
It's a common misconception, but the military is a business, right? They're one of the best businesses on the planet because they dedicate so much resources into training and coaching and developing their assets in order to get the desired outcome from them. We call it basic training, right? Boot camp. And then you go to technical school. It's a grooming process to get you to exactly what it is they need from you. And you know, so when you go to boot camp, there's a baseline. Some people are already above that. A lot of people are not, and their job is to get you to there. And you go to tech school, get further, granular details about your specific task. And but to the point of excellence, at least for the Air Force, for all military branches, excellence is going to be in their mottos, right? For the Air Force, it's in our core values. So it's integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do, right? And the order of that matters, right? Integrity is first. Service before self. I couldn't have done the things I did. The people that get all these medals and accolades, the things that they do, we're not there doing it for that. We're doing it because we believe in what we're doing. We believe in why we're there and who we're actually there to support. And then excellence in all we do, and that applies to the first two because we care wholeheartedly about doing the job a certain way, getting it done the right way, the right time, with integrity, with our end user in mind above all, and doing it in a way that that you can be proud of.
So excellence is an expectation, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like today, right? I called, or yesterday, right? We were doing our diligence, and I call you. What time you want me to be here? It starts at 1:00. All right, I'll be there at 12:30. You were like, you're a civilian. You're like, nah, that's fine. 12:50 is fine.
I said 12:45.
12:45. Yeah. But I'm still here at 12:40. Even that just makes me uncomfortable.
I got here at 12:30 today. So But my golf coach, I remember he used to tell me, early is to be on time is to be late, late is to be dead.
Yes.
So,
well, I would hope that is derived from the military, because in your job, if you're late, you're not dead. But in our job, on the battlefield, that's real life.
Gosh.
You get somewhere at the wrong time. You don't have the right gear. You're malnourished, or you don't have enough hydration. You don't show up to the battlefield ready to go. You're dead.
All right, what are
So
we
they
doing here?
say, so there's another one that's easy to say, and that's 2 is 1 and 1 is none.
Okay.
Right. So you're gonna have everything you need, and then you're gonna have an extra, because having 1 that goes down. It's no good. I'm gonna apply that to the amount of chips I have here soon. Jeez.
No, we're gonna get one here.
I think I have a hit coming.
Okay.
Or 2.
All right, 15. Come on, 20.
There you go. I'll stay. Come on.
All right.
It's all right. I ain't mad at you.
Hey,
That's progress.
you know what?
Right
That
there.
is progress
You know what?
right there. That is good progress. So, when you were, sounds like your dad.
That's yours. Oh no, we push.
No, we push.
Well then
I feel like I need to give you some chips just for pushing. But it sounds like your dad was unreal, very influential in your life. But how about anybody when you were in the military? Anybody that you remember that was a mentor or anybody else to note?
Oh well, good to stay.
Yeah.
Surprised he didn't get blackjack.
Here, let's get a win. Yes. Yes.
It's the first time you've gone to the chip tray.
Yes. You got it.
Well, I was blessed to have been surrounded by a lot of phenomenal people. Not all of them were my leaders, but I did have phenomenal leaders. As a special operator, we take for granted our company. You're surrounded by a bunch of alphas, and we've all been through an attrition process where, like when I started, there were 36 of us. Only 4 of us graduated at the end of a 2-year-long pipeline of schools, right? So all of us have been through this process. We're all, we are all what's left, and made it through all these filters.
Mm-hmm.
So high performance environment, and we kind of take that for granted.
Yeah.
But phenomenal people. My team leader, last name is Smith. He was one of my groomsmen at my wedding in December, and he was my leader throughout the pipeline, and someone that I look up to this day. He was not always the most popular because of his decisions, but because I knew him and I knew his heart, I knew what he was grounded upon. I trusted his direction, and your bosses don't always do things that you like, but
Probably knew he had your back too.
He definitely had our backs, even when we didn't know it, right? It didn't feel good to hear no, right? Nobody likes that. You can't go there, you can't do that. But he held the line, he held us accountable, integrity over everything. We couldn't cut corners. So one of the ways that, unfortunately you can't apply this in the business world, but one of the ways that they would hold us accountable would be 8 counts, right? So the cadre through our pipeline, if we did something wrong, they would assign us 8 counts, 8-count bodybuilders. It's like a burpee, only worse.
Yeah.
We would get hundreds of these, thousands of these, and we would have a dry erase board where we'd have to keep a list of how many we have left. And in our lunch breaks, we would have to, still in uniform, all crisp, back in the days of BDUs when we actually got to iron our uniforms, we would be in the hallway lined up doing 8-count bodybuilders, knocking off 100 at a time and adjusting the number on the board. There's no cadre there to ensure that you're actually doing these things, right? So you can imagine the dissension in the ranks where there's one guy with a dry erase mark and you're like, come on, man, just help us out.
Yeah.
Never. We paid up every single one that we owed. Yeah. Looking back on that, I get to have that conversation. Appreciate the hard times, because those are the times that grow us even closer in life.
Yeah. And I mean, the resilience it probably taught you, and how you've had to apply that is probably crazy. You're really gonna hit on this, and I'm showing a 6. You can.
Oh no.
Okay, so I've got a hit here.
Mhm.
So this is exactly, yes. Okay.
So now we'll see what the next one would be.
Because you would have done pretty good, but no.
Right, but that's better.
Yeah.
We want the dealer to bust.
Okay. There you go. So you're coming back. You might already be back. All right, so let's go to deployment. Okay, so you've got your first deployment. And what's your first deployment?
So after being in the military for over 3 years, it's also very different than if I was 18 years old, graduated from high school, and joined the Army. I would get a signing bonus, and I could be in combat within 6 months of signing. In the Air Force and Special Operations, going through all that training in all those schools, that's 3 years of intense training before we're even able to deploy.
Yeah.
So my first deployment, 2010 in June, and I was on standby to replace anybody if someone was incapacitated. Then I had my bags packed and ready to go, and I would be in country within the week if something were to happen. So the team deploys, I'm on standby. Another unit goes to what's called a train up, and to support a different facet of the war.
And where are you based at this point?
I'm in Hurlburt Field, Florida, which is
Okay.
Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
Okay.
So I get the call that one of the guys that went to this train up to do a different type of mission had injured his hand with his pocket knife. He was working on his gear, cut his finger with his pocket knife, had to get stitches. So he was unable to finish that iteration of training, which was a pre-deployment process. So because he couldn't do that, I had to do a high five with him and take his spot, which means I was no longer going on my deployment that I was planning on. I went and did this different type of mission. So the different mission is called Combat Search and Rescue. My job is to sit on the base and watch screens, kind of like the Bourne Identity. You go into the operations center, you see all the screens there. So I'm watching the war transpire in front of me, listening to the team radios, watching the aircraft live feed, watching the ground force commander communicate with the guys on the battlefield. And
But this isn't like an air traffic controller.
No. I'm jocked up. I have my kit on. I've got my radios on.
Yeah.
Bags are packed. Weapon is ready to go beside a helicopter that, should something happen on the battlefield, my job is to run out there. The helicopter returning, I would board that along with 3 pararescue members, and we would fly out to the combat zone, and I would be inserted to pick up where that person left off. So you could imagine how intently glued you are to those screens and those radio conversations, because in an instant I could be out there. So that's very different than what I have been training for, right? I've been training to be out there all the time, but this is combat search and rescue. So I'm praying that nothing bad happens, but I'm also, there's a lot of angst, right? You feel like Rudy Rudiger in the last scene where you just want to get out on the field, but obviously I'm praying that nothing happens to draw me out there. So that was my first deployment.
Was deployment, we all have our ideas of what a deployment would be like. Was it totally unlike, any expectations that you may have had? Or,
well, the beauty
this is a unique kind of deployment, it seems.
Very unique.
Yeah.
We recognize that we're the tip of the spear. We're on the battlefield. We're engaging the enemies. And that becomes the norm, right? That is our day-to-day. So I say my deployment was very tame, but what it did was it brought the battlefield home to my parents and to a lot of our families as combat controllers, because September 16th, 2010, Danny Sanchez was killed in combat. And it just so happens that Danny Sanchez is the one that cut his hand. And I was the one that had to replace him. So he was serving where I was supposed to be.
Mm.
And he was killed by a member of his Afghan team. So 13 days later, Mark Forrester, who was my best friend, he was also killed in combat. And my parents back home went to both of their funerals in my stead. So my dad loaded up and drove to El Paso, went to Danny Sanchez's funeral, and then 2 weeks later drove to Haleyville, Alabama, and went to Mark Forrester's funeral. So, a lot of people watching this are still scratching their heads about, what is the Air Force doing on the battlefield?
Yeah.
Well, every branch of the military has a special operations component, and it's not all the chair force, right?
Yeah.
So there are men and women today in the Air Force that are engaging the enemy. So we had done a good job of convincing my mom and dad, all of our moms and dads, that what we're doing is safe. We're in the Air Force, Mom.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Everything's
Yeah.
fine. So when I came home in November of 2010, it was a very, very different situation.
And how long a period of time was there between your first deployment and your second deployment?
So in the Air Force, at the time, we had a 1-to-1 dwell ratio, meaning we are deployed for 6 months and back home for 6 months.
Okay.
So I did a 6-month deployment. I was home for 6 months and then redeployed in June of 2011.
And what did you mainly do during that time of you being home? I assume that you want to head here.
I'll stay.
So,
My goodness.
so
I'm
during
not
that
worried.
during that 6 months.
During that 6 months, you're home living the life that we're used to living. When we're home, we are training. We're staying current. So as a
Yeah.
combat controller, we're doing...
Wait, I've got to ask.
I know you
do
do.
you want some insurance?
in the past, I would have loved to have paid you for insurance in all facets of life. But today on this table, no thank you. I don't need your insurance. You make a hard sell.
Yeah. So you're just trying to live.
You're
a normal
training.
life. Yeah.
Maintaining currencies. So we're shooting, right? Small arms fire, staying proficient in shooting our pistols and rifles and long range weapons. We're still jumping out of planes, staying current in skydiving, airborne operations, scuba diving, all these things. And
Yeah.
we're having to keep doing riding dirt bikes, 4-wheelers. It sounds like G.I. Joe. It sounds like we're all just having fun, but the military has an awesome reputation for taking all the things that you do for fun and then making it dreadful.
Mhm.
Turning off the light and putting on a lot of weight on you,
Yeah.
right? So skydiving is fun, right? Get out there and jump out of a perfectly good airplane, but there's no such thing as a perfectly good airplane. So we jump out at 18,000 feet on oxygen with a wall locker, meaning we've got a 80-pound rucksack between our legs, a weapon strapped to our side, and we weigh, we're like a 300-pound bag of bricks going out of the plane in pitch black at night with no night vision. So kind of different than your skydiving video that you post on
No,
Facebook.
I've never done that. I don't think I ever will. Sorry.
Come on, man.
Hey.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah, it is.
So that's what we're doing.
You were doing
We're-
the training.
A lot of training. So what is a combat controller? Right?
Yeah,
That's a
I
good
couldn't
question.
answer.
It's a
I
good
couldn't
question.
answer.
A combat controller is the air-to-ground liaison providing air traffic control and fire support in combat. Oh boy.
Ooh, that's a good split. Too.
Mhm.
Always splitting 8, especially if I'm showing a 6.
Yep.
Wow, this could be
Perfect.
big. But you've
Well, not that
small,
big. It's a
yeah.
limp in bed.
Here.
No. You viewers would not appreciate that. That charity.
All right, let's finish this really quick. So you're showing 2 8s. So
You can double down on that, right?
I guess so. We'll let it happen. I mean, I guess.
I'll just take it.
I'm not afraid to do it. Wow, that's good. Okay.
Would have been good and stay.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Oh wow.
I'll stay. I'm getting 15 against it. 6. Yeah, I'll stay. Big card. Thank you.
Yes. Gosh, I wish you had some big currency out there.
That's all right. Hey,
Okay, so let's
So that's what a combat controller is, right?
Yeah.
I'm the one. It comes from forward air controllers. If your viewers are familiar with the Vietnam era, right, we're the ones with the big radio on our back calling in airstrikes from behind enemy lines. Today, that looks like 2 radios on my chest. I'm communicating with inner team. So I'm attached to an Army ODA, a Special Operations team, and they all have a different role to play on the battlefield. It's a team of 12 guys, and my role is communications, right?
Okay.
Whatever we're doing on the battlefield, running and gunning and kicking in doors and engaging the enemy, if we encounter a threat necessary of bigger weapons, then it's my job to call in airstrikes.
Okay.
So that's what a combat controller does.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of multitasking. It's a lot.
But you weren't doing that in deployment 1. Your first
Deployment 1, I was a combat controller, basically on standby.
Okay. But deployment, let's talk about the second deployment now.
Right.
So are you going straight into a role like that?
Yes. Yep. So in June, late June 2000, and I got it.
Okay.
It is. Give me a 5. Gosh.
You ready? Well,
Don't feel bad.
yeah.
It was a possible Where's going on?
Yeah, I gotta take that.
It was possible that I would be all out of chips by now. You know, I mean, we're doing good.
I love your method of wagering too. It's just kind of, this is what I'm feeling.
It's sporadic. It's gotta be. It's gotta
Very
be.
sporadic. Okay, so deployment.
Deployment number
second
2.
deployment.
First of all, in between those deployments, right? There's the mission side, but there's also the family piece, right?
Yeah.
So I come home in November of 2010, and I continue a tradition that I had started the year prior of going to the Forrester family's house for Thanksgiving. So when I got home from my first deployment, me and my family went to the Forrester's house for Thanksgiving. I had gone with Mark in 2008 to be with his family at Thanksgiving because it was more convenient driving from Florida to Alabama. And when he was killed in combat, I went back, and that was a tradition I carried on for the next 11 years. So for 11 years, I was spending all my Thanksgivings with his family and all my Christmases with my own family. So in between the deployments was catching up with Gold Star families, so the Sanchez's and the Forresters. So my second deployment, I got to prepare for. I knew exactly where I was going. I was at the time, and in the war, it was about village stability operations. So our job is to attach to an Army ODA, and we are going outside of the compound and providing logistical support for Afghan local police officers. So our job is to prepare them to be able to provide safety and security for their land whenever we would eventually leave the war. This is in 2011, right? So we're providing weapons, training, ammunition, food, uniforms, schedules, tactics. We're teaching them all these things, right? And it was 6 months ago. Well, it was 6 months ago, in 2011 to September of 2010, that 2 of my best friends were killed in combat by the same types of people that we are there now to support. It's a very difficult work environment where you don't know who you can trust. And you might be able to trust somebody wholeheartedly one day, but behind the scenes, someone is impacting that person or their family, and they show up to work that day with a very different agenda. So you always have to be watching your back. And that's who we're there to support and train. So we were a team of 12 guys and myself. We load up in 3 huge vehicles, literally about the size of this room. And me as the combat controller, I want to be on the outside. I want to be in the bed of the truck so that I have situational awareness of everything that's going on around me. So while we're driving around Afghanistan, I've got my radios, which are constantly synced to satellites. I've got a moving map tool on my Panasonic Toughbook. I'm marking waypoints that could be potential sites for something that could happen in the future. Like there might be something over that ridge line that looks like a good possible point of origin of a, enemy attack.
Yeah.
So I'm annotating those things, writing out coordinates, just so that if something happens, I have my head down, I already have information that I could immediately pass to aircraft overhead to get their eyes on what I want them to be looking at. So while the rest of the team is focused on their role, but they're riding the vehicle, you don't really see a lot. It's like you're in a submarine inside that vehicle. You got glass this thick. But my job is going on the entire time. So I've been on my team for 7 days. This is the 7th day. And we're going out to a place that we hadn't been to yet. A village is called Johnnie Yellock. And we're driving south. We start picking up inter-team communication from the enemy that takes us off of our route. We pursue them, we don't find anything, we come back to our route, we start picking up more ICOM chatter that they see us, they're wondering if we're going to stop. They are talking about how many vehicles we are, how many personnel we have, so we're getting prepared for something to happen, right? So we come up to a large riverbed, dry riverbed called a wadi, and the first vehicle goes down up and through this wadi and takes a defensive posture on the other side to provide cover for us as we go through. We go into the wadi on the same tracks as the vehicle in front of us, and we get more inter-team communication that they're wondering if we're going to get out of the vehicle. At this point, my interpreter is in the bed of the vehicle with me because he's listening to that chatter. He's interpreting it, telling it to me, and I'm relaying it to the team leader in the passenger seat of the vehicle. We start to come out of the wadi. I put my hands up on the turret and lean back into my heels. And as we start to come up out of the wadi, the improvised explosive device goes off underneath the rear axle of the vehicle that I was in. And when I opened my eyes, I could see nothing but the orange haze, and I could smell and taste the chemical noxious fumes from the homemade explosive device, as well as the diesel that was pouring out. And when I sat up, I had been flipped up onto the turret. My helmet had gone back, I had a laceration on my throat. And when I sat up and looked down, I could see the bottoms of both of my feet looking back up at me. My interpreter, Enzo, was unconscious in the floorboard, and I was losing blood. And I put my headset back on and maneuvered myself and raised my legs off to the side, and then communicated, grabbed my weapon and started to scan the village that was to our southeast about 200 meters, and communicated to the team leader inside the vehicle that I don't see any activity in the village. I've got 2 broken legs. Enzo has a broken leg, and I need a medic. And all of that was that calmly stated, but that last phrase was probably a little bit more elevated. I remember repeating that part a couple of times.
Can you remember, first of all, oh my gosh. And I've never heard you necessarily tell that story the way that you did. So thank you so much just for telling the story and for just what you sacrificed, man. And so in that moment, can you just remember it in slow motion almost?
I mean, I can remember it in whatever speed you'd like.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm blessed in the fact that I do remember it. I didn't lose consciousness.
Yeah.
I was knocked out for as long as it takes for my body to have flipped over up and onto the turret. I was fortunate I wasn't knocked off of the vehicle, because at that point we were about 12 feet from the ground. I could have been killed just from the fall. But I'm also blessed that I was conscious and I remember every single thing, because so many of my peers, fellow wounded warriors, have to be told at a later date, right? They're in a coma, and then they'll be kept in a coma, medically induced coma, sometimes week, 2 weeks,
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
They wake up and they come out of this and their whole world has changed in the blink of an eye, and they have to be told, that they lost people, or that, they're a triple amputee, and these are the things that have happened in the times that you've been out. So I'm incredibly fortunate to remember everything. I'm glad that I had such flimsy little legs that they just turned to dust and, absorbed all the energy, because it didn't impact my nugget.
You don't have flimsy little legs because you still got them. I want to hear. We're going to hear more about that, but yeah. So in that moment, I don't want to keep dealing cards, but I don't want to interrupt this story, right? So in that moment, how did that preparedness kind of start taking action?
When you tell people that story, I get blown up. Everything has changed, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking in, everything is different. But for me, nothing has changed. I'm still doing my job. I'm still reacting to what's going on the battlefield. I am a limfac right now. I'm a limiting factor to my team's safety.
Yeah.
So I'm immediately engaged in grabbing my weapon and scanning and looking for a follow-on attack that my training has told me is coming. And as soon as I had done my job, then I'm like, all right, well, we need a medic.
Yeah.
I need a medic.
Yeah.
I was, so that has nothing to do with me being a cool guy or me being Superman, and everything to do with your tax dollars hard at work, right?
Yeah.
Everything that led up to that point was preparing me for that point.
Yeah.
It's no different for everyone else in whatever situation they find themselves in. I believe that everything that you do, every day that you have, if something comes at you, you've got what you need to be prepared for that moment, to be able to conquer it. So it's never been about why me, and always about what's next.
Yeah.
And that's been my mindset ever since.
Yeah. Well, that explains a lot. The positivity that you have, and the ability that you have to kind of go through all the challenges that you've had. And with such a solid mind, to be honest. So were you about to say something?
Well, the positivity, I knew why I was there, right?
Yeah.
I was confident in what I was doing. I believed in what I was doing. I was serving my country. I was proud of the work I was doing. But I also knew that, things could change, right? On the battlefield, 8 months prior, 2 of my best friends were killed in an instant.
Yeah.
Right? So I was blessed enough to open my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still here. I'm still doing my job.
Yeah.
And today, fast forwarding, but we'll get there. Today I'm wearing a very different uniform, but I'm still committed to doing the same job, which is serving others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into kind of what.
I feel like I deserve a blackjack. Let's see it.
You do too.
My goodness! Let's go! Look at that wee bet.
Yes. That is no. I'm not taking your chips. I'm giving you chips. Okay, so
There should be those 4 and 2 more. Didn't it?
yes. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
I think.
It is. I think it's like 1.5.
1.5.
I think every table's a little different, but okay. So now it's recovery time.
Yes.
Well, would you even call that recovery time? Right now, it's almost triage. Or?
Well, now it's trauma.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the IED goes off. It takes about an hour for me to get to higher care, loaded up on a stretcher and loaded into the helicopter to fly me to Sharana. I'm conscious the entire time. I'm communicating the entire time. I remember things started to get hazy as I was being offloaded from the helicopter on the helipad. I remember how hot it was, especially whenever they took me out into the heat, but then also the rotor wash from the helicopter was very hot. I remember being carted into the OR. I remember clothes being taken off me. I remember communicating to doctors. now I can't see anything. I can just remember speaking. And then the last thing that I remember was after I'd been given my cocktail before going back from my first set of x-rays before surgery. The nurse leaned down to me as they were pushing me back and said, "Think a good dream and dream that dream." And the last thing I thought was, what the heck? And I was out, right? So, someone in that position's got to know that they got to come up with something a little bit more profound, than think a good dream and dream that like Tinkerbell. Like, but that was the last thing I thought, last thing I heard, until I wake up the next day with my commander around me, pinning medals on my chest, getting a combat action medal and a Purple Heart.
That happens the next day?
Oh yeah, as soon as you wake up, when movies like Stripes, they're all running around the base and they're jodying.
Mm-hmm.
Jodies that's what it's called when they're chanting while they're running. I want to be an Army Ranger, right? So one of the ones that we sing is, if I, tell my mom I did my best, pin my medals on my chest. As soon as you wake up, they're there to present you with those awards.
Wow.
At that point, it wasn't 100% certain that I was going to survive.
Yeah.
While I was unconscious, my dad, here in Fort Worth, Texas, working at Lockheed Martin at the time, gets a phone call. And if you've ever had somebody deployed, when the phone rings, all right, I'll say. No. 14. There you go. When the phone rings, it could be from, it looks crazy on your cell phone, right? It could be a bunch of numbers, it could be a few numbers, it could be some words, but it's coming from a satellite phone. So my parents knew, this is my second deployment, that means my boy is calling me, right? Yeah. So my dad answers the phone, and it's my commander, Chris Larkin, and he says, "Chief," my dad was a chief in the Air Force, he says, "Chief, Chris Larkin, he's alive, and I'm gonna go get our boy." So as a parent, you know how long those seconds felt in the amount of time from hearing someone else's voice and hearing my commander's voice, who they knew. My parents had met my commander before I deployed. Hearing his voice, assuming the worst in an instant, and the first thing that he said was, "He's alive, and I'm gonna go get him." And that's
There's probably purpose to it being that quick, because they know the mental anguish that's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So
wow.
That starts the process of getting home. I had a lot of wound washouts, a lot of surgery. I had 7 surgeries by the time I got home. It took 7 days to get me from Bagram to Landstuhl, Germany, to Walter Reed, and then to San Antonio, where I would spend the next 2 years.
Okay. In Germany?
No, in San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
Germany, I was there for 4 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you want to split that.
Split 7s against a 6?
Against a 6, I think. That's what my gut tells me.
I'm pretty sure I should stay, but I'll stay.
16, Chad. 9. 14.
Against a 6, I'm supposed to stay. You have a bus.
You got to think I'm going to bust.
Yeah.
Very good chance.
My man.
Yes.
So 7 days, I'm back in San Antonio. My dad's got connections, so my dad is he walks up the ramp of the C-130 at Kelly Air Force Base and is the first person I see when the ramp lowers down. He squats down to my stretcher. And then my mom and dad rode in the ambulance with me to BAMC, Brooks Army Medical Center, where I would spend the next 2 years in care. I met my surgeon the next day after he had reviewed my charts He's standing at the foot of my bed, introduces himself. His name is Dr. Shoe, which is appropriate because I didn't wear a shoe for like a year after my injury, but his name is Dr. Shoe, head of orthopedic care there at BAMC. And at the time, you know, wars are good in the medical industry because you get a lot of iterations of very similar injuries.
Yeah.
You can come up with new ways of repairing them. A lot of personnel landmines were taking guys' limbs, right? A lot of guys losing legs, 1 leg, 2 legs, a lot of amputations. So this process of limb salvage was really pushed forward by my surgeon and my team to follow on, prosthetist and physical therapy, of yes, we could amputate these legs, and in the field they said that I was going to be a double amputee. They could amputate, but we could also do limb salvage and be able to save them and get you to where you need to be. So he's standing at the foot of my bed, introduces himself. He says, after looking at your chart, your left leg is horrible. It's almost beyond repair. It's the worst I've ever seen, actually. And your right leg is even worse.
Yeah.
But I have a plan, and you're going to walk again. So that started years of corrective surgeries on my legs in order to keep them. And today I rolled in here in a wheelchair, which is not common, right? When I met you, I was walking around. But 2 months ago, I had my 33rd limb salvage surgery to be able to keep my legs. And wearing pants, most people would never know that anything was wrong with me. Anything was wrong with my legs. The in-state, what those surgeries have done is fused my ankles in a 90 degree to where my feet will never move again, but I wear braces that allow me to do everything that I've ever wanted to do. I still scuba dive, still skydive, still haven't found any limitations.
Yeah.
You know, I say that I don't run anymore, but I'm not missing out on much. You know, running sucks. Everybody does it badly.
So this positivity that you have, man, is pretty crazy. And you're gonna stay. Let's go ahead. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, we got a good thing going right now. What do you credit kind of that, you know, your overall mindset to? Because it's unique. You know, there's a lot of people who have gone through things a lot less than what you've gone through, and they have a hard time getting out of bed just from a mental state, right? So what would you credit just that positive nature that you have?
For me, it's always been my faith.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I knew why I was there. I knew what I was doing, and I knew that life is short. Life is meant to be difficult. And I was prepared to die on the battlefield, right? When we're training and preparing for this, the ones that you introduced me as a hero, the ones that pay the ultimate sacrifice, those are the heroes, right? My friends that have gone before me and have been in the exact same situation as me and not been able to come home to their families, and those are the true heroes. So I am, you know, how in the world could I hang my head whenever they paid the ultimate sacrifice? It's on me to live the rest of my life to make them proud, right? I'm forever supporting their families, loving on them. You know, they lose one, but in our communities, they gain hundreds of people that are constantly checking in on them for the rest of their lives. You know, so absolutely faith, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not afraid. I wasn't afraid to die. I wanted to do my job. I wanted to serve my team as best I could. That's not wanting to be a cool guy. It's not wanting to die, but it's like, I'm here to do a job.
Yeah.
I'm in someone else's country and they don't want us here.
Yeah.
Right? So I can't be mad at the fact that I got blown up right? I went looking for it. My license plate says "got me," because they did. They got me, but they didn't take me out, right? The best thing that I get to take from that situation is perspective for the rest of my life. I was blessed to have been able to open my eyes and carry on with the mission. And like I said before, I'm not running and gunning on the battlefield, but I'm still in the exact same mindset of positioning myself in a way and preparing myself for any way that I can be of service to others. And as I've found, doing exactly this, sharing my testimony, sharing my story is how I'm doing that today.
Yeah. Tell me, talking about the mindset and the mental side of things, you're going to say, it was a good call. Let's see.
Oh,
PTSD is a real thing, right? Have you suffered with that at all?
post-traumatic stress
Yeah.
is a real thing. There's a lot of people that are, trying to remove the disorder aspect of that.
Okay.
So post-traumatic stress is a
Yeah.
real thing, but it's not a scary thing. And it's
Yeah.
not something that is only pertain to combatants.
Yeah.
Right? When I was 16, I was driving with my mom, which is already a stressful iteration enough. Driving my mom in the passenger seat, critiquing my driving. But I'm in Dallas traffic, and she's telling me to stop, slow down, and I did not, and I rear-ended the car in front of us, right? So I had a fender bender. To this day, I feel that,
Yeah.
right? But that's not a bad thing, right? That's the beauty of the mind, the human mind. Things happen to you that are intentional, right? Or extreme enough that you remember, and your body is trying to provide you a way of avoiding that in the future, right? So I will forever just give so much more space than, everybody else is like, why are you so far back? For my whole life, I've just maintained a lot of space. I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
That's right. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Everybody has post-traumatic stress.
Yeah,
Something
that's a
has
really
happened
good
in
way
your
to-
life,
Yeah.
and your brain remembers, and it's going to try to protect you from allowing that to happen again. For me, I was never diagnosed with a TBI or a traumatic brain injury. I was not diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. I attribute that to what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Because while I was from the moment I opened my eyes, I've been talking about it.
Yeah.
I haven't suppressed anything. While I was in the hospital in San Antonio, an inpatient for 3 months, I had a full room of visitors all the time.
Yeah.
My mom was constantly trying to run security, keeping people out, and I was always saying, let them come in, right? Talking again, San Antonio is military capital of the world, and there are not many Air Force wounded warriors that are in these hospital rooms. So all these brass, all these generals are coming to visit, shaking my hand, and I'm telling the story.
Yeah.
Right? Morning after a surgery, I get asked to go and speak on a panel to 100 brigadier generals. These guys that had just put on their first star, and they brought in a Navy, Marine, Army, and they needed an Air Force guy on this panel to talk about our experiences. And it was in that meeting where I spoke, and as you could imagine, I was probably the most verbose. I was probably the most engaging. I realized that people had no clue what was actually going on, right? That's where this conversation started. Was your deployment and going on a deployment, was it what you expected? Was it, what was that like?
Yeah.
Well, our leaders also feel the exact same way. They haven't been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
When a civilian thinks about the military, you think everybody's carrying a weapon, everybody is an expert shooter, and everybody's ready to go to war. That's not the way it is.
Yeah.
that's where I started with the military being one of the best businesses, because we have finance guys, we have accountants, we have lawyers, police. We have all these different things to be able to make everything work. It's a very small percentage of us, especially in the Air Force, that are engaging the enemy, that are firing weapons every single week, that are calling in airstrikes. So I recognized how necessary it was and beneficial it was for me to share my perspectives from the battlefield. And I did so for them, those generals, and then have been doing so now for 12 years in businesses.
Yeah, you're great at it. Yeah.
Well, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing this, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy connecting with people. I enjoy the conversations I have after I get off the stage, because those are the ones that are truly impactful, truly meaningful, and they drive home the purpose for being there so much more so than any paycheck.
Yeah. I really like your perspective on the business that is the military, and that they are very good at what they do. Is there any, because obviously from a mental health standpoint, being deployed or just being in military at all has its challenges, right? And, I'm helping employers that have mostly employees that get to go home every day, that get to go home to their families. And I'm working to try to solve kind of the mental health crisis that we see in America right now, right? Is there anything that the military is doing that really supports the mental health of troops that we could learn from?
Unfortunately, the military is at the whims of all the other influencers in society, right? It's not a business issue. It's not a military issue. It's a cultural issue, and it's the fact that we as individuals are so mortified of lowering our walls and communicating with others, especially whenever it's to do so in need of help.
Yeah.
We're so afraid of raising your hand and saying that you need help, that you don't feel good, that something is wrong.
Yeah.
Businesses and the military alike are spending millions of dollars in order to thwart this. But what's necessary are more people to begin the work of lowering their walls and speaking up. Every single time somebody does so, like when I give a public engagement and those people that come up afterward, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Right? Because me lowering my walls, talking about how difficult things are, but relying on my network that I've been intentional about surrounding myself with the right people all my life, and recognizing that those are the people that are going to be there when you fall. That's huge. That's really what I'm speaking about. Is about being intentional about the people you surround yourself with, right?
Yeah.
Because how was I able to go from being loaded on a stretcher to being here today and having the mindset I do? It's my faith. It's also my family, and my sphere of influence, which I was intentional about pouring into for every day that I had, so that on the day that I fell, they were all there to support me and take care of me. Likewise, in business or in life, for everybody else, take advantage of the days, that we have to pour into other people, right? Because those are going to be the ones that are going to be there to support you. Oftentimes, what I've learned is the best way to support somebody else is lowering your own walls and sharing that you're going through something, because it makes it so much more inviting for them to say, me too.
Yeah.
I've been going through the exact same thing and haven't talked about it. So businesses provide the resources.
People need to own it,
but people need to walk through the door.
Yeah.
Right. That's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna downplay that, right?
Yeah.
Because, one of the things that we mentioned earlier was that, and it's easy for us to say this generation isn't communicating,
Right. Yeah.
it's unfortunate that this generation has this, right?
Yeah.
And we're looking at this so much more than we're engaging face to face.
It's not a surprise that
It's not a surprise.
we're struggling as much as
That-
we do. Yeah.
It's not just this generation.
Yeah.
We're all struggling.
Yeah.
We think that this is gonna keep us together, but
Yeah.
we know, a lot of your viewers know that it's these types of interactions, these type of connections is the reason we're sitting here playing blackjack today.
Mhm.
Hopefully that can connect with people, encourage them to lower their walls, share their story. You don't have to do so with someone you don't know. Take your time, be intentional about today, and call somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's got, a long list of contacts in their phone that, what are they doing there?
Yeah.
We have hundreds of numbers in our phone.
Yeah.
And we don't just think to call them.
Mhm.
If I'm ever on a long road trip, I will scroll through my numbers and call some random people.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to try that.
Yeah. Let's finish this hand, but I want to hear kind of, what you want people to know of what you're doing right now. And I assume you want to hit here. 14,
Yes, a 14. I need another card. Oh my gosh.
17.
Yes.
Sorry,
Of course.
I took your chips there.
You did. That was a big bet.
So
too. Here's one more piece on my mindset, my positivity, and how can I not hang my head? And like I said, it's my family and my faith, and that why me, what's next mentality. But also in 2011, it was boomtown in Afghanistan. It looked like you have a blackjack.
No, I don't. I'm actually hoping that you go aggressive here because I don't have a good hand right now.
I don't know how aggressive I can go there, but I definitely need a card. I don't think you should split threes.
16.
I have to take a card.
Yes.
There you go.
I got 16.
Oh,
18.
18. This is
So-
18, right?
Yeah.
So when I was doing rehab for 2 years down in San Antonio, it was busy. There were a lot of wounded warriors down there. It was an incredible environment. I'm surrounded by people who are, in looking at them, so much worse off than me,
Mhm.
right? I've got my legs, and I'm surrounded by peers that are, you don't even let me put a bed out there. I'm surrounded by peers that, are triple amputees, quadruple amputees, paralyzed, burn victims.
Yeah.
And how in the world could I hang my head and complain about my situation whenever I'm watching a 19-year-old who just came home from the battlefield, a triple amputee, his life is forever changed, and he and another triple amputee are balancing on medicine balls and knocking each other off and cracking up, having the time of their lives, right? Like, it's all perspective, right? You put it into perspective.
Yeah.
If they're able to do that, how in the world can I not be the exact same?
Yeah. That's a good message, man. It's a good message.
God only gives us what we can handle.
Yeah, I agree.
And I've had so many people, even parents of the Gold Star families whose sons were my friends. They've told me the same thing. Like, wow, you're so positive, and I don't think that my son would have handled being wounded like you have.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sure they would.
Yeah.
How many stories, like, you don't know what you can deal with and what you can handle until it's asked of you.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go looking to hurt myself. I was never injured. I broke a finger once.
Yeah.
I had 0 injuries in my life, really, until I was catastrophically blown up on the battlefield, right? But because of being intentional about why I was there, being intentional about the people that I surrounded myself with, being confident in my faith and why I was there and being prepared to die, waking up and recognizing how fortunate and blessed I was to get another day, that's how I have to approach every single day. I spent years, 4 years of my life to become the tip of the spear, to be that force on the battlefield. And in an instant, in an explosion, I go from being the tip of the spear to being cargo.
Yeah.
And I'm in the way. And I'll spend the rest of my life supporting and, paying respect and honor to all these people that make up the rest of the spear, right? Because you can't do anything as the tip of the spear without everything else that makes up the inertia and the driving force of that spear.
Such an inspiration, man. It's such an inspiration. So what are you doing these days? What are you kind of focused on these days?
I'm trying to do more of this.
Yeah.
Speaking with.
Yeah.
I mean, not blackjack, obviously.
Hey, I think you're gonna end up on top. I don't know if you want to hit right now though.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So 12.
I chose
22.
wisely.
Yes.
Yeah.
That might be a good way to
so
end on a high note.
I have my own consulting company that I started whenever I got out of the military, and I've been doing public speaking ever since.
Yeah.
Like I said, ever since I opened my eyes, I've been talking.
Yeah. I've seen you at a Rotary before, and you did an excellent job.
I appreciate it.
What does the future look like for you in terms of maybe goals for your legs, etc.?
Like I've had my 33rd surgery. My short-term goal is to be ambulatory as quickly as possible because we're on the clock in the Yellock household. My wife is due to have our first baby in January.
Congratulations.
So I'm excited to get out of the wheelchair and start walking again because I imagine I'm going to be making a lot of late-night trips to the changing table.
Yes.
So I just want to be able to support her, right? So that's that may not sound like a big goal, but that's what matters most to me. So my legs, that's the physical stuff is always the easy part for me.
Yeah.
The mental stuff that we touched on, and we can talk for hours more about that stuff. That's the stuff that requires true work.
Yeah.
But the physical stuff, when I had this surgery, I had the option of amputating. Right. So a couple of months ago, I was given the option of doing nothing or amputating or having this surgery to fix it. And I chose to have a 33rd surgery to fix it because every time I've done so, it's been one step forward or one step back and 5 steps forward. It's always gotten better. So long-term goal for my legs, I'll ride these things until until I can't anymore.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of the world if I should ever have to amputate one or both.
Yeah.
I'll be fine.
Well, thank you is not enough. You are truly a hero, and I can't wait for people to be able to just kind of hear this conversation that we had and be inspired by you. I want to count these to see where we're at because I think we made some money. We're just gonna go ahead and say $250. All right, there you go.
I appreciate it. $250 for wounded warriors and first responders. You'll see the zipper in the back. So if you have leg injuries, leg impairments, or an amputee, we can fit you with custom cowboy boots with an insignia of your choice. For
these yours?
These are mine. Yes.
Okay. That's really cool, man.
Yep. So it's
like a thank you gift almost. Huh?
So this is, that's exactly what we call it. We call this a tangible thank you for your sacrifice.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, thank you. And I don't know if that's going to get even a pair of boots because these are pretty nice boots. But thanks for doing this. And I really appreciate it, man. And thanks for your friendship.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good to know you.
Yeah, welcome to the excellence culture, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.